Okay, this is a quick microwave version video for the Thieaudio Voyager 9. This is a set that hasn't come to market yet, but I got a few versions of it, and the version that I'm looking at is the one that was decided upon. It's fantastic. I didn't do a video yesterday because I was OCDing on this and just loving it, and then got into the where's the problem stage, where you just start going through stuff, and I went through what was the most recent one, which was Sweet Dreams, Eurythmics, Tupac When We Ride, America, Tin Man, Since You're Gone by the Cars, Def Leppard, Photograph, Aerosmith, No More, No More, the Doobie Brothers, Taken to the Street, Black Sabbath, Sweet Leaf, Ozzy D, Metallica, Fade to Black, because it's fresh. Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams as well. Everything sounded fine. At any point where I thought the bass might interfere with the vocals, it didn't, because the V14 didn't, and this is very similar to that set. Very, very similar to that set. The difference between the two, and the reason that I'm putting this higher ranking on my own personal list, is because it's got dynamic driver taking care of the bass, and that's particularly important in the sub bass. So we got that. We got a bass to mid transition that's not that dissimilar. It's actually probably got technically a little bit more stable of a mid portion before it starts to creep up into the treble, and it's creeping up at a trajectory is a little bit lower. It's about the same elevation. I'll talk about graphs at a future date because they really do tell you a lot. It's got the notch around 6, which is appealing to me, and it's got the post 8K info. So if I had tuned the V14 to be improved, like a V14 Pro, I would have probably done this, but I, again, had nothing to do with the tuning. I sometimes get asked, what do you think of this tuning? But I don't actually do any tuning, so clear that up. But I listened to it, thought it sounded great. I looked at it, thought it looked good too. It's not that jarring in any particular point. Graphs don't lie. Graphs are not used enough. People are talking about other sets that are let me show you something. See that bass line? And you see that treble? Look at the red. You've got a bass and a treble that are at about the same point. And you've got the mid scoop, which is not bad at all. This is a very nice and smooth and pleasing listen with all of the information, the harmonic. Let me get into something real quick. This is Critical. Critical is the best grapher in the business. He's been doing it longer. He's got the largest collection. He's got a system where you can, if you're for free, this is a really, really valuable tool that you guys need to use. Especially if you have a set that you know that you like, you need to go look at what it looks like on a graph, because that's probably your preference, roughly. Like it, when measured, a set that looks kind of like that is probably something you like. Now, variation, because variety is the spice of life, is very good too. And something different doesn't mean you won't like it, but it's important to know what you do like, especially when you spend a lot of money. So we're looking at a sub bass. This is the U12T. And we're looking at a treble. Again, it's almost kind of like a chopped Harmon. Doesn't have that hill. It's slightly reduced, and the peaks are not over the bass. And if they were, which they're not, just teeny slightly might be okay, one way or the other. But this is fairly balanced with good mid display. Some people consider this long, flat portion to deliver thin sounding type of mids. Other people like this because they're true audiophile and they want nothing going on from here to here. But this is a very well received set, the U12T, and it displays a profile that's very pleasing to me. It's got the sub bass, it's got the smooth trajectory. This is not a jarring up jut right here, because remember, this is everything 1K and forward is basically the harmonic stage of male and female vocals and guitar. So if you listen to stuff like my library, you're going to hear a great emphasis on the harmonics and vocals, and also in the guitar if this area is done too jarringly. Like this is dipped and then this is rising, and then it's got multiple peaks that are over the bass, clearly over the bass by several dB. That's going to be a set that is bright and is going to be fatiguing to your brain and is maybe not going to match for rock and roll. For orchestra, I couldn't say because I don't listen to that kind of music. This set, the Voyager 9, plays everything in my library that I just mentioned, that I'm OCDing on, really, really good. The bass is emphasized. Remember, on the left side, it's like you're turning the volume on the kick drum and the bassist. If you had a tone control, if you had one in the middle, you might make the sound of vocals boxy, or kind of like almost bloom. So it's a touchy area because that's a fundamental region for vocals. Playing with that and doing any odd dips or peaks is a big no-no. No, that's the fundamental vocal zone. And 1K to 4K is really the harmonic of the vocals and the guitar. So you don't want any great emphasis right there. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. So this is the Urban Fun and the B-Lawn. You see the bass and you see the treble is basically along the same line. They're taking slightly different trajectories to 1K, but I prefer the Urban Fun. It looks like it's something that might bleed into the mids, but actually it's a very smooth transition that's maybe related to the beryllium coating. I don't know. And musically it sounds about the same or maybe a little bit better. If I were to look at these two lines and think which one would I prefer, I'd go with the green one because it's a smoother trajectory and it's about the same amount of elevation, maybe a little bit lower. Does that make a difference, those two angles? Yeah, it actually does. It does. Let me show you an example of. See that? That's kind of a similar angle, but it's going a lot further up, and then it's getting to a peak, and then it's falling out. It's sticking itself out amongst all other things relative to the bass. That is clearly going to be the dominant part of the signature right there. There is no doubt. The graph does not lie. The vocal, harmonic, and guitar is going to be emphasized over the kick drum clearly, over the fundamental portion of vocals clearly. That is going to be the case. That is the case. I've listened to the set. The graph doesn't lie. This is another set. This is the... Oh, okay, I won't even mention it. This is another set that's taking... God. That's about 11, 12 dB. That's getting a little bit steep on the incline from 1K, and then you've got a high elevation, and then you've got two higher elevations. We're almost at the dead wrong spots at about 6 and 8K. Clearly a bright set. That's at some points that's like 7 dB above the bass. That is a bright set that's leaning in kind of the wrong direction. If I would take balanced or dark, personally, this doesn't fit me. I'm just highlighting how this graph is showing you that guitar and vocals, because they exist, the fundamental harmonic crossover. Fundamental is the sound, harmonic is like the extension of it. Okay? So if I were to knock my hand on the table, boom, the knock on the table would be like 0.5 seconds, and then everything beyond that for the full 1 second of the sound would be the harmonic extension. So when you elevate the vocals and the guitar harmonics too much, it's why people... Vocals and guitar are very much the same because they plot along the line at the same... do I have a picture? Okay, I don't. I thought I did. Okay. Anyway, 1K is a very key point, and that's why you see a lot of frequency graphs taking their... That's where they go. This is too much. This is clearly, without question, anybody that listens to lots of gear and makes graphs, you can ask them, well, do you think this might be a little fatiguing with guitars and vocals? I think every single one of them would say yes. Not necessarily because of this treble design, but because when you look over to the left, you have empty space. You're like standing on a mountain looking over a plateau. That is a bright set. That would not be appealing to me or my library. This is, sorry for the scale, this is a little bit off. This is the Voyager V3. It's really very balanced set. It's got a nice transition. It's got a smooth, it's this from 1K to its first plateau. If you would adjust this down for a 10 dB block, this would be about 8 dB. That's not excessive at all. It's quite nice. And then you've got its unique little points. And this is a really good set. Some people love this is what the Voyager V3 looks like if you guys aren't sure or aware. I gotta redo this because I had the volume up a little bit too high, so it looks more normal, but this is the profile. It's really nice. And again, Voyager did this. They, knock on wood, not for the fundamental harmonic, just for like luck. Please keep making good stuff. This is the Dunu 3001. This is an example of beryllium bass, because while this bass looks slightly, you know, emphasized, again, it's not over the head of the treble. Again, my ideal tuning. This is a unique take on the treble, but it's not offensive in any kind of a way. It's got enough post 8K info that I get live for my cymbals, and it's not a problem at all. However, this bass doesn't sound as it looks on a graph. It actually needs EQ in my opinion, but that's the beryllium doing its work. There's potential there. It's a good replay. Better than the 4001. This is an example of what I would call a monitor set. This is the Naga Audio Sirius. Now, as you notice, this is very different. When we get to the 1K transition point, it just keeps doing its little thing. This is fantastic for listening to guitar, for drums, bass guitar. Somebody was asking me. I absolutely went totally OCD with this, listening to Bill Ward, drummer on the Black Sabbath. God, which album was that? I was listening to Sweet Leaf, and I was just tripping out on the drums and what was the kit that he was using, because this set was delivering that to me. Now, vocals, as we get past 1K, there's really not emphasis. Vocals don't sound anything except subdued. And Stevie Nicks, for example, actually sounded okay. It sounded like she took 2 steps back in the mix. Totally audible, absolutely no problem. The fundamental and the harmonics are both there. There's just not that normal, exciting emphasis post 1K for the vocals and for other stuff. But for monitoring purposes, something like this, I'm discovering also Jerry Harvey Lola, when it's tuned to a certain point, it's doing almost exactly the same thing. If you're a drummer, a guitarist, a bassist, this would be a set that I would recommend, because I myself, as a music lover, listening to the music, was just tripping on stuff. Absolutely, completely tripping. Get back to that. Next, this would be Critical Set. This is Critical Set. Now, take a look at the bass, the highest point of the bass, and the highest point of the treble. It's the same thing. It's not a bright set. It's not exaggerated in the treble. It's not a dark set. It's not exaggerated in the bass. The bass is not potentially bloating for some people in some genres. The sets like that have a little more bass, like this set, might not be ideal for classical or something like that. Something with bass that's coming down this early, it's really going to get out of the way for most every genre. Critical Set would be something that you would listen to pretty much for anything, which puts it right with the U12T, which is basically designed the same way. This is a 12 balanced armature driver with no dynamic, and Critical Set is also without a dynamic. There is no exaggerated emphasis on the bass relative to the rest of the frequency, so you're not going to perceive it that way. It's got proper mids. It's got an elevation up into the treble, the first peak, which is about 7, very reasonable. And then it's got its little unique treble profile. It's got the 8K, which is not a problem. When I first came in the hobby, everybody said 8K, 8K. It's 6. 6, 6, 6, 6. Drop the 6 if you can. And he's got a little bit of notch right here, gives it its unique character, and then he's got post 8K info. This matches my personal preference. This plays back my library pleasantly. This is a really, really good replay. Now, I know we're here for the Voyager, but it's all kind of related. What is a graph telling you? A graph is telling you that if from this point at 1K to this point is very big and trajectory is high, you're going to get a jarring experience when it comes to the vocal presentation or guitars using my library. on a set like this that's 10 dB or less and is going rather smoothly, not so much. You're not going to get that, wow, the guitars are right there. Not at all. Everything's going to sound kind of where it's supposed to be. And this, again, is a monitor set. If you are into monitoring and you want to monitor yourself, and maybe the guitarist and the bassist and you're a drummer or some, the bass is not emphasized, but it's absolutely perfectly there. Bill Ward, Ginger Baker, I was checking out their kits because of this set. So that's what that did. This is a beryllium that's not really doing much. This is the Voyager V3. This is the final audio. Again, there's the bass, and here this is a plateau that you're standing and looking down on the bass because this is a bright set. This is a set that is somebody compared to $2,000 headphones, and I think that you need to calm down when you recommend stuff like that, because you need to talk about the music. Because when I listen to Def Leppard Photograph, the guitars on this set are overwhelming. When I listen to Metallica Fade to Black, the guitar is overwhelming. When I listen to America Tin Man, the vocals are overwhelming. When I listen to Eurythmics Sweet Dreams, part of the organs are overwhelming, and Annie Lennox is kind of overwhelming as well. It's failing on all fronts when it comes to, and the bass might be done well. People might say, oh, the bass, it sounds very accurate. If your brain is being overwhelmed by info related to guitar and vocals, that bass guitar is really not going to be on your mind as much, because you're going to focus on the most dominant presentation. It's like a bass heavy set. It doesn't matter if the treble was tuned brilliantly, it looks just like a U12T. If the bass is way elevated, your brain's going to be focusing on the bass, so it doesn't really matter if they got the rest right. When you do like this to the treble, if they tone this all down, I don't understand what the point of this is. So this, I totally went off script, man. But you guys want to know how I interpret graphs? Well, kind of here you go. This is too much. Too much. Whoa, this is worse. Again, up here looking down on a bass that might be accurate and done right, but it's hard to focus on that and appreciate the quality of the bass when there is a emphasis in the harmonic range of the vocals and guitars that is unnatural, and then it's falling off precipitously, really. It's I don't know. That's not. So this gets to show you the price. Okay? This is quite expensive. This is quite expensive. And these are both cheap. Are they talented companies? No, they got lucky. But these are talented companies, and good luck to them. I'm not going to be doing a review for either one of the sets because I have nothing positive to say. And I'm not, just not. I got other stuff that I've got lined up to step on verbally. I'm not going to do it that much. So this is the, well, that segued perfectly. This is the Voyager V9. It's got a dynamic driver. You can see the bass and the treble are approximately the same height. That's not a jarring move at 1K. It's actually pretty smooth. It's around 8 dB. Let me see if I were to adjust that up. About 8 dB. It's not bad at all. I consider 10 to be. If the angle is sloped, it can be longer. If you turn it like this, it's literally relative to what's next to it. So it's like turning volume controls, and you're turning up the treble right here. If this is too much, you're gonna know it. This and the bass are sitting together quite nicely. The mids are coming in well. There's a notch around 6K, which is perfect for me. There's a lot of companies that are doing versions of this. It's got info at 8 and just prior to it, and then it's got post 8K info. It's a brilliantly, and the whole thing fits in a, if we were to cut this and then cut this, it's all fitting within a 10 dB box across the board. Maybe tighter than that. It's a very nice set. This is just a microwave review, and I went off onto graphs, but I think it's important you guys understand how I look at graphs. I look at the 1K because I know that this is the fundamental harmonic crossover for guitars, male, female vocals. Guitars is maybe 150 hertz up further, and male, female vocals are slightly different. The harmonic extension is identical. The the statement of male female vocals is sometimes overstated unless they're talking about the bass or mid bass. When they're talking about the treble and for male and female vocals, it doesn't scientifically really make a difference. You're talking about the fundamental start of male vocals that's lower, and females actually go slightly higher. Anything past 1K is the harmonic part of vocals. So if somebody's saying that the treble is good for female vocals but not male, doesn't make any sense. Not really. It's kind of overstatement. But this is a graph that looks good, and on the library that I'm listening to so far sounds really good. So I kind of went off script there. I don't have a script. I should make a script so that I can go off of it and then blame that. I don't have anything to blame. I just felt like getting into graphs. So you got Crinical's graph. Go to critical.com and use his graph machine whenever you see something that you like, and then make a mental note of that. This is going to help you save money in the long run, okay? You don't want to waste your money. And finding out the profile of a set that you like is a reference point for you. I like variety. I like stuff that's slightly different. I don't want to always get the same thing, because what's the point in that? But what do I like and what does that look like it's a nice little piece of info to keep in your back pocket. And Critical provides something for you to be able to do that. If you want to do it at a higher level, you got to pay, but two graphs compared, like your set versus one you're considering, you can do that with his setup easy. I'm using Critical because he's literally the only person in the hobby that's got to the level of quality and size of collection and interactive tool that is you can recommend. All the other graphs, including mine, are various levels of ghetto. I'm probably in a cleaner ghetto than a lot of the other graphers, but this dude's on his own level. And he took the tuning of his set that he did with Fearless, and really, this is what he likes. This bass and this treble being quite around the same height, an overall deviation. This is 75, this is 65. Stop it right here. The whole thing's fitting in about a 10 dB box, pretty much. Really close. That's another one of the things. I don't want to see anything jutting beyond that range. And then you take a look at this, and you look at Critical's own set. This one. Look at that. Look at that. Smooth transition, flat, early mids, going up a slow hill. No problem. Nice plateau that you're looking on, and you're not looking down on the mids, you're looking across at them. Nice bass, smooth transition. It's got mids. It's got a nice rise. Stand up on the plateau and don't look down on the bass, look across at it. It's the same thing that U12 does, which I like. U18, extra $1,000 for the same sound, not so much. This is great tuning. This is the Critical Fearless X. It's the best Fearless release so far. I don't know, that's thrilling for Fearless, because Critical did a better job than they do, and they're a good company. But this is about the Thieaudio V9. I reckon you get it when it comes out. It's fantastic. It's my favorite right now. I don't like it more than the Sony, but that's $1,600, and this is $1,000 less than that. Is it on the same level? Nothing else is, so not really, actually. And they're gonna have wood caps on it. So I'll let you go. I'm out. I'm gonna add a little video at the front of this and tell you guys that I went off on a tangent. So I'm out.